Let's see. All right. We are now, I believe, going live. Yep. I see it on, here we go. I see it on the, whatchamacallit, and I could do this solo and add to the
Video.
left.
Oh,
There we
there we
go.
go.
Here we
Yeah,
go.
yeah. Nice.
It's working. Oh my goodness. All that for this. Love it. All right. So, welcome to The Real Deal On. And we're going to do a quick introduction of our pal, Jordan Adler. At 34 years old, Jordan Adler was living in an enclosed garage. The rent was $200 a month, and he had two roommates. He carried $36,000 in credit card debt, and his job paid him $14,000 a year. He had tried 11 network marketing companies in 10 years and never signed up one person and never made one penny. The future looked bleak. Yet today, he's one of the highest paid network marketers in the world as the #1 affiliate with his legacy company, Promptings, powered by Send Out Card. He cracked the code. His best-selling book, Beach Money, has sold over 1 million copies, and 100% of the profits of his book are donated to an organization that helps entrepreneurs in developing countries start small businesses through microloans. He recently published a second book, Better Than Beach Money. Jordan also founded Momentum Makers, books and events with his business partner and publisher, Tony Ferraro. Their mission together is to create opportunities for emerging leaders to get published and speak on stages that will allow them to bring opportunity and credibility to the profession and instill belief in the network marketing model as a way to create a legitimate residual income lifestyle of growth and freedom without having to invest a lot of money and hire a bunch of companies. And employees, rather. He has been featured in over 100 books and has been a guest on over 300 podcasts. He has spoken on stages with Sir Richard Branson, Tony Robbins, Pitbull, and Eric Warr. Jordan splits his time between two mountain homes, a condo on the Vegas Strip, and of course, the beach. 6 years ago, he decided to get his helicopter pilot's license for fun. Just for fun. He's also scheduled to become the first network marketer to travel to space as part of Sir Richard Branson's Virgin Galactic Civilian Space Program. Jordan's message is a message of hope, simplicity, and limitless opportunity. Jordan believes that when you continue to send good things out into the world and treat people right, good things will come your way. Oh my goodness, sorry, it was a mouthful. But,
Doug, I feel like I just got introduced on the dating game. Now bring out the
right?
ladies.
Well, we got to make it fun, right? I mean, that's the whole point here is let's enjoy the process. That's why we're doing this, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that, by the way.
Thank you. So I'll just share real quickly. We met on the Marketers Cruise. So if anyone's curious about a Marketers Cruise, reach out to us because we'd be happy to let you know how awesome it is. But it was an awesome opportunity to meet great people, and I was fortunate enough to have that. I was a little intimidated, to be fair, because I knew your name from
Mm.
once I heard it. Because at first I thought someone said Jordan Atlas, and then you're talking about helicopters and all this stuff. I'm like, man, this guy's badass. Like, I want to meet this guy. And then when I heard Jordan Adler, I was like, no way. It's got to be like I've known your name, legendary, for a good 15 years.
Wow. Well, you know what? I'm surprised that we haven't met up till now. I'm grateful that Virginia, put us together on the cruise, and that I finally pulled the trigger and went on one of these things because it was so fun, and the connections. Just this connection alone was worth the whole cruise right here.
Amen, brother. So true.
I mean that. I mean that. You and your wife are doing good work. So.
Thank you. Well, what I really want to kind of dig into first is your story. You know, when you shared in your bio that you were homeless and were homeless, but practically, uh,
I was close, but I wasn't homeless. I had a roof. I had a garage roof over my head. So
okay, so it's leak proof. But that was something that our mutual friend had said. He's like, "Do you know Jordan's story?" I'm like, "No, we just met. He seems awesome." He's like, "Oh man, his story's insane. Like he's been around. He really he's the epitome of persistency pays off."
I paid my dues for sure. Yeah. So yeah, I grew up in the south suburbs of Chicago, and in a very modest. My dad made 28 grand a year, and I had two sisters, and we lived in a 1,200 square foot home. We take one driving vacation a year that would be for 2 weeks. But I was wired as an entrepreneur. My dad wasn't an entrepreneur, but I was wired that way. And so I would have, I had a paper route and I had lemonade stands, always looking for ways to increase my tips and be creative. And, I didn't know what personal development was back then, but I was at a garage sale and there was a book in a box called The 10 Napkin Presentations by Don Failla. Guy's still alive. He's in his late 80s now, but the book, I bought it for a quarter and it taught me the ideas of residual income. It was not a book to sell anything. It was, well, other than the profession of network marketing. Doug, are you still with me?
Yeah, I'm giving you full. I'm giving you
Sorry.
giving you the
I
full
just wanted to make
focus.
sure you disappeared, and I just
Yep.
wanted to make sure you were still there.
Yeah,
Okay.
I could
So I
come
got,
back. There you go.
oh, that's fine. That's good. So I got the concept of residual income and leverage from this book, and that just planted a seed. And right, I was required to go to college. My dad paid for 1 year for all three of us, and then we were required to figure out how to pay for the other 3 years. Got a 4-year degree in landscape architecture, University of Illinois. Moved to Arizona. I knew one person there, a woman that I used to date, and I went from Chicago to Arizona. One of the first people in my group of friends that had the courage to leave the town, because everybody stayed there for the rest of their life. So I go to Arizona, and there was one point where we were down. I was staying with Susie, and we had one egg and one dish and one fork. We were in our early 20s, and we scrambled the egg and split it to have something to
Oh
eat
my
on
gosh.
Sunday morning. All we had. I had no money. I had $250 and I bought a little $200 motorcycle. Anyway, started applying for jobs and also looking at different opportunities. And I started joining network marketing companies. And I joined my first network marketing company in 1981. I was 20 years old. And then
Do you remember what it
I
was?
joined. It was Dr. Hill's potentized spirulina. So listen, you got to understand, I knew nothing about network. Like I just looked this book I read, right? It was this little old lady. She was like 84 years old, and she was into this blue green algae in these
Yeah.
little jars. And I didn't know what I was doing, and I fumbled around for a few months, and everybody I talked to was negative, and so I would quit. And then 6 months later, I found another company, and over the course of the next 10 years, I joined 11 different companies, never made a penny, never signed up a single person, kept bouncing back every 6 months or so. I'd jump into another company. I was an easy sale. And I would go to a couple meetings and I would listen to some audios and I would read some books. And I was in Amway twice. I was in Sunset Travel Clubs. I was in Dr. Hill's Potentized Spirulina and a grocery coupon program and a whole bunch of others. Never made a penny. And then in 1992, I joined my 12th company. And you've heard this before, when opportunity and preparation come together. I'd been studying and going to events. I maxed out my credit cards. At one point, I accumulated 22 credit cards, and I had $36,000 in debt on 22 credit cards, going to events and buying product and getting training programs and things like that. So that was my education outside of my college education. And in my 12th company, I figured out how to set up an appointment. I figured out how to. I decided that quitting was just not working for me because I just would quit as soon as I had any setbacks.
Well, so let's just back up a little bit to share what was your mindset. Well, two things. One, what were you doing in like while you were trying out these other things, and then how was it you kept, like, what was going on in your head that you didn't throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak, like where you didn't say, network marketing's for the birds, it doesn't work, or whatever,
Right.
you've, I'm sure, heard people say. So what did you do to sustain yourself? And then how did you keep, like, what was your mindset going into each time, knowing that the last time hadn't worked? And most people give up after one or two.
They do. And I had this degree, so I got a job as a draftsman paying $10,000 a year. And then, I get a little raise and I was at $11,000 a year. And I worked in 2 years, I worked for the state of Arizona, the city of Phoenix, and a couple of small firms. And I was a draftsman and I never made much money doing that. And there was a new airline starting in Arizona called America West. And they had one plane and 180 employees. I actually became the 180th employee. So I left the field of landscape architecture to join this airline when I was in my early 20s. And I was there for 13 years. And we didn't get paid a lot of money. I was a very, very small thinker around this time. Like, dream for me was to buy like a fax machine. Like that was my dream, you know.
You've made
Seriously, I'm
it.
not, you know, a cell phone was a couple grand, and that was just like way out of range back then. And so, but I was so wired as an entrepreneur. I didn't really even know what it meant. I just felt like I wanted to be free. I wanted
Hmm.
to call my own shop. You know, back then, 95% of the population was 100% sure that network marketing was a scam. And today, it's the other way around. You know, 5% are convinced it's a scam, and the other 95%, whether they do it or not, they know it's legit.
Right.
And because we've been around for a while, and there's generations of kids that are being raised. But I was working jobs, barely paying my bills, but I was still living on, you know, I had a beat up old Jeep in the street. So check this out. I was 34 years old. I'd been in 11 network marketing companies, never made a penny. I was living in an enclosed garage in a house where I had two roommates that lived in the house. We were paying $200 a month each. I had $36,000 in debt on 22 credit cards, a Jeep broken down in the street that I couldn't afford to fix. And my airline that I'd worked for at that time, probably 12 years, had just filed bankruptcy and was laying off everybody. They ended
Wow.
up getting, yeah. So that's where I was at the age of 34. And that's around the time that I joined my 12th company. Now, to answer your second question, what kept me going? The truth is, I didn't keep going. I would quit. And then 6 months later or 4 months later, somebody would present me with an opportunity, or I'd see something and it'd be like, well, maybe this is my ticket. And so I jump in that, and I talked to a few of my friends. I'd be excited about it. You know, I loved Nishika 3D cameras. It was this camera that I put on my credit card that was $295 back then. And it was a 3D camera. You
Oh,
take
you've got the
pictures
one
and
with the 3 or 4 lenses on it?
yes, I still have my 3D camera today. I don't know if though that film could even be developed today, but you know, I have a few pictures floating around from back in the 80s. But you know, I would talk to a few people. I'd invite 5 people to a meeting because that's how we used to do it back then. And it would cost like $5 to go into the meeting. You'd have to pay for your guests, and but what would happen is I'd invite 5 and no one would show up, and
Mm.
then I'd call them back and I'd get their answering machine and they'd never return my calls. And, you know, so that went on. And after literally 2 or 3 tries, I just would throw in the towel and just say, it's a good idea, but I'm never going to be able to be successful. I didn't believe in myself. I did not understand the concept of, you know, working through your challenges versus quitting. You know, like I would just be like, maybe this isn't the right opportunity for me after 2 or 3 conversations. And so I kept reading and studying, and then there was a point, and I'll tell you what happened. I joined my 12th company. I'd met this guy. Do you know the name Russ Devan?
No, I don't think so.
He had a company called Success by Design. He was in his 20s, multimillionaire, living in this big, beautiful home in Scottsdale, Arizona, with a big circle drive and a fountain. And I'd never had success in network marketing, but I'd been in a bunch of them. And I met this guy, and he told me that it doesn't matter if you're a real estate recruiter, like a real estate broker or an insurance broker or a network marketer. He said that in the business of recruiting, you just need to be prepared to sponsor 20 to 30 people, to find 20 to 30 people, to find one that's going to really do something worth talking about. So if you're a real estate broker, you need to prepare to at least recruit 20 to 30 real estate agents to find one that'll make 100 grand a year. And I heard that, and it shifted something for me. This was one thing. This was one defining moment. I never went into business with the guy. But when I joined my 12th company, there was a coffee plantation on Mill Avenue in Tempe, Arizona. And I would go from my office at America West 3 days a week, and I'd go to that coffee plantation. I'd grab somebody that was getting laid off, sit them down, and show them what I was doing. And I figured if I did 3 a week on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, if I did that every week for a month, that would be 12 presentations. If one of them said yes, if I could just get one to say yes to what I was doing, and I did that for 2 years. So I actually, Doug, I drew a grid. I drew a grid on the wall above my bed in that rental. So if you were to look through the window of the enclosed garage on 505 West 16th Street, on the wall above my bed was this grid. And then every time I would share the business, I would write a date. And I was doing 3 a week. My goal was 3 a week. Some weeks I'd do 4, but I'd write a date in these boxes. And I was looking for 20. So I wrote on the top, I wrote find 20. And then the top position in the company was executive director, ED. And on the bottom right, I wrote ED for executive director, fine 20, ED, and I got all these dates. And I was single, and I'd meet a girl and like her, and at one point bring her home, and she'd walk into my bedroom and she'd see this bed with dates on it and ED at the bottom, and who's Ed? She'd ask me, like, who's Ed?
Wow.
So yeah,
At least it didn't go another route with the what does ED stand for?
yeah, no kidding, no kidding. But, yeah, I don't even know if that was the definition back then. But anyway, so I ended up. So here's what happened. After 24 months, I'd signed up 19 people. So I didn't quit. I focused, and if I ever had a setback, I had big setbacks, major setbacks. But I'd made a conscious decision that I wasn't going to quit when things got tough. That was a conscious decision, and it became a mantra for me. Mantra. Don't quit on a bad day. And so whenever I was having a bad day, I'd made a decision. I'm never going to quit on a bad day. And so I didn't quit. After 2 years, I signed up 19 people personally. My 16th person was a woman named Jackie Ulmer. Jackie worked at the airline. She was an analyst. Her husband was an airline pilot. And Jackie started signing up a few people, not a lot, but she brought in a woman in New Mexico who was a secretary and a student. And that woman, over the next 3 years, put 12,000 affiliates into my organization and over 40,000 customers, and it made me my first $1 million. And that was on
Wow.
my 15th year in network marketing. I had made my first $1 million, and it was my 12th company before I made a penny. And so I moved out of the enclosed garage, and I got a nice car that ran. And eventually, with that company for 13 years. I'd still be with them today if they hadn't gone out of business. We were $1 billion network. $1.5 billion a year network marketing company. And there was a radical change that changed everything for all of us in the market. And that was when digital technology was invented. And as soon as digital tech, we owned hundreds of millions of dollars in mechanical switching technology, and the whole industry went digital.
Oh,
and
was
when
it
that happened,
like a telecom?
telecom.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the whole industry went digital, and our infrastructure became obsolete in 6 months. So we went from a $1.5 billion company to a $300 million company in 6 months, and couldn't pay our bills. And so my $80,000 a month residual check went away. And but I had savings and I had real estate at that point, and that was after 13 years. And then I joined my 13th company, essentially, which is what I've been doing now for the past 17 years. And that's
So wait, that was 17 years ago when?
Yeah, the business went away 18 years ago.
Wow.
I had been with the company for 18 years. Yeah. Lots of like lives, lots of
Yeah. So
lots of life happened between now and then.
all right, so back then we didn't have the term, because I had a similar situation in the music industry where technology disrupted it, right? But we didn't have those terms like industry disruptor or whatever. It was basically like, what the F? What just happened?
Yeah.
How did you deal with that? Like where did you, like, how did you find what you're in now? And did you like vet other places? Did you bring your team with you? Like, were you like starting over?
Well, I'm a networker, so I meet people, I make friends. The truth is, I did not have a lot. We went through a really tough time, and a lot of people scattered to different companies when our company went down. It was in one day. I got a phone call from a friend in Colorado that just said it's over, and we had no idea. It was just like one day we were there, and things were going okay. Things weren't going great, but they were going okay. But had no sign on the wall that there was going to be a shutdown. And then one day it just stopped. The income stopped, and so I decided everybody got into a state of fear, which was easy to do. It was easy to get into a state of fear. It's like, what am I going to do? I've got $20,000 a month in bills, and I still have savings, yes, but what's my next move? Like, what am I going to get involved in? Like, where? And so people start prospecting you. Somebody got a list. There were 2.5 million distributors in our company, and I was a top 20 in the company.
Wow.
And somebody bought a list of the top 20 phone numbers, email addresses, and physical addresses. And so they start selling it online. And so I started me and a bunch of others, 19 others, started getting bombarded with hundreds of messages a day, people trying to recruit us. Finally, I just shut everything down. I closed my computer, shut off my phone, everything. And I went to the mountains just to really figure out what I wanted to do, like what direction I wanted my life to go. And I actually wrote down a list of things that I was looking for, and then I went out to pursue. I didn't take a deal. I had people coming to me with deals. Like one company offered me $1 million in 1 year to come over and bring my people. I didn't take a deal. I didn't take a master distributorship. I wanted to start like everyone else at the beginning with with the whatever investment was involved to get started. And I didn't go after send out cards. They didn't come after me, but a distributor came after me. So this guy started sending me cards in the mail. And back then they were using DVDs, and they put a DVD in the card using the system. And I watched the DVD, and explains the story of how it worked and what it would do for people. And I was interested enough in it that I was like, I will use this product. I'll use it every day. So I contacted them. I went to the headquarters, and I sat down with the founder, and the company was very small. The top earner in the company was making $3,000 a month. So there wasn't the signs on the wall that there was big money there or anything like that. Right. But I saw some big potential. I saw potential there, and I saw that I thought, millions of people are going to use this service someday, and I wanted to be part of that growth. And so I jumped in, and I've been with our founder now. We've been partners for 18 years. And, when I started, half the population was on dial-up internet service, and there were no smartphones and no apps. So there's been a lot of evolution. But to answer the question, how did I deal with the change? I think you just deal with one thing at a time as it comes along. It's almost like the story of the frog that's in the pot of water that the heat slowly gets turned up. You don't really notice it while it's happening. You just notice that there's this thing that was just launched, and it looks interesting, and people are chattering about it. For example, at one point, networked voicemail before emails, or if it was, I think it was before emails, networked voicemail, it got to the point where we were spending $3,000, just every time you added a user, it was costing you more money every month. And we were spending $3,000 a month just to pay for the ability to send a message out to lots of people at the same time.
Wow.
To be able to send a message out to lots of people at the same time. Today, that's free. And so what happened was new platforms, like there was freeconferencecalling.com.
Oh, yeah, freeconferencecall.com, yeah.
All these different things launch, and then you go, and then, obviously Skype and then Zoom. And so you try it, and you see, this is something that's going to be a little better for our team. And then you invite people to it. And today, stuff that we do today for free would have cost you tens of thousands of dollars to do 15, 20 years ago. It's incredible. Stuff that a new distributor joining a network marketing company today, back then it would have cost them $20,000 a month to do the things that we do today for free. This would have cost money.
Oh yeah. It's amazing what we have access to. It's insane.
And the result of that, though, is there's a lot more competition, because it's easier for people it's easy to get published. It's easy to write a book. It's easy to get, to go live. It's easy to attract people online. There's all kinds of different things you can do today that was a lot more difficult back. And platforms, there's people you can pay and have access to create stuff for you that you couldn't back then.
Right. Well, so walk through a little bit how your strategy may have shifted, both in dealing with technology and the product that you were selling or providing, the solution you were providing. How did that shift, if at all? I mean, I'm sure some stuff did, and maybe there's some things that have always been consistent. What was your strategy? How did you get to the place you were in your first successful romp in network marketing? And then what did you take with you, and what did you leave behind when you moved into send out cards? And then how has that changed? Because it's been 18 years with send out cards.
Yeah. Lots of
changed.
Sure. The fundamentals don't change. So relationships are always going to be foundational. Building relationships, even in today's world, with all the sales pages and the technology that makes it easy to attract people and sign people up for your program and follow up through emails, all that kind of stuff. Even in today's world, the strongest business growth comes from joint ventures and people that connect on a personal level and then decide as human beings to do business together. So those relationships become key. And I don't believe that, even like someone like Jeff Bezos, he and his organization, Amazon, has had to forge partnerships with thousands
Mm.
and thousands and thousands of companies. And in order to do that, there had to be conversation. There
Right.
had to be face-to-face conversation. It wasn't all done through technology. And so back then, we did conference rooms and hotel meetings. There's a lot of expense associated with that. We had a system, a very simple system of, first you got your dream. You want to know what is it that you're doing the business for that's bigger than you. Then you got to be able to set up an appointment. And then you got to be able, how do you invite somebody, right, to look at it? And then you've got to be able to present it. And then you got to follow up. And then you follow up and follow up and follow up and then sign them up, get them started, and train them. So you had to be able to run that pattern over and over and over again. And that pattern still exists today. Although I had a very interesting experience where I was at a mastermind where there were about 100 high-level network marketers, and half the crowd was under the age of 30.
Hmm.
And these are people that paid $10,000 to $30,000 for the year to be part of this mastermind. And I'm in a room with them. And when you started talking to the 20 and 30-year-olds, the 20, 22, 25, 28-year-olds, you found out that many of them are making $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a month, but they've never set up an appointment and they've never given a presentation. What they do, and this is how things have changed radically, is they know how to build a big following on social media.
Mm.
And so they build a following of a couple 100,000 people. This is how they became successful. Not everybody can do this, but this is how the people in the room that had reached those high levels had become successful. They built a big following on TikTok or Instagram, and then they would do a lot of personal stuff to attract attention on their profile, on their timeline or whatever. And then they would also do marketing on there, where they do marketing videos on there, right? And they're good at that. That's not my forte. I do a little bit of it, but it's not my forte. I have 11,000 people following me on Instagram, and that's good, but it's not like massive or anything like that. But I have my Linktree link in there. I'm always looking for what's the latest technology that people are using, and I'm trying to incorporate that. So I have my Linktree in my Instagram
What
and
are
on my
these
Facebook.
damn kids using these days? There's a link tree. So sometimes I
There's
feel, yeah.
there's two things, and you can define them different ways. But there's marketing, and then there's sales.
Right.
Or you can also break it down by and say, instead of saying that, there's pursuing and attracting.
Mm-hmm.
Pursuing is kind of old school, although it's still being done today. Pursuing would be like, Doug, I didn't know you, and I reached out to you and said, Doug, I send you a message today, and I say, Doug, you don't know me. My name's Jordan Adler. I wrote a book. I'd love to chat with you and run some ideas by you. Maybe there's some things we could do together. And I send you this message, and we don't know each other. You just get this message. That's a cold call. You don't know me, but we can now look at each other on social media. You can look at my name and I can look at your name, and you can decide whether you want to meet with me or not. That's pursuing.
Right.
Then attracting is about your brand. Attracting is, so you've got this brand out there that is it Max? What's your brand? What would you say your brand is? What are you known for, Doug?
Known for breakthroughs, communication, like the communication skills, like NLP and that kind of stuff. And then spend a lot of time, and my wife and I, Heidi and I, we do stuff dealing with couples and families dealing with addictions of sorts.
Perfect. Yeah. So that's what you're known for. So like if you say Grant Cardone, what is Grant Cardone known for? Real simple. 10X.
10X, right? But I knew Grant before that as what he was doing before.
But that's his brand. Tony Robbins, like one thing. What's his brand? One thing.
Step up,
firewalk, right?
Yep.
All right. You could go with like Hugh Hefner. What is he known for? Playboy. Different. You could just throw out different things, right? And different people, different companies, and a lot of them. Apple is the iPhone, iPad. It's me. It's all about me, right? And ease of use. So everything has its brand that is become successful. And so each person needs to really look at, like, what do you want to be known for? Rudy Maurer, who's a social media agency, he's known for the red life. Like if you look at anything he's done, everything's red. His offices are red. His employees all wear red. Drives red cars. Everything's red, and he's known for the red life. We had a guy in Arizona for many, many years, 20 years. He was known as the Pumpkin Man. That's all he did is every year for the Thanksgiving parade in our little town, he would get a flatbed and load it up with pumpkins and give the pumpkins to the crowd.
Oh, how
And
cool.
the press was there,
Yep.
and they would put it on the TV. And he became known as the realtor that was the Pumpkin Man. But that became his brand. So there's pursuing, which is reaching out to people, and it's the sales process that I just described earlier. And then there's attracting. That is where you define who you want to be in the world and who do you want to attract, and you put that out there. So my brand is Beach Money for 20 years. Everybody knows me as Mr. Beach Money. And that says something. Beach money means something to most
Hmm.
people. When you say, you don't need to explain it too much. Like you say beach money to somebody and everybody conjures up an idea. And the people that I want to attract are the people that are attracted to beach money. So you want to like define like who, and so that's the attracting side of the business. And you do that on social media. You throw that out there all the time on social media. You just really promote your brand over and over and over and over again, loud and proud, and you get as many people talking about your brand as possible. Then you start attracting people.
Well, and also 100%. And what I noticed is there's that hybrid of when you go to, for example, like the marketers cruise or a networking event or that kind of thing, you're still going on brand and looking to attract people
Yeah.
to your vibe, to, it's it's still like it's being congruent with your brand. Like, are you
Yeah.
staying on brand when you go out? Are you, like, it's funny if you notice at that cruise, Heidi and I never showed up in just a pair of shorts or whatever. That's not my brand. I always was dressed up because that's how I roll and that's how Heidi rolls. And there's nothing wrong with anyone doing whatever they want, but it was like, hey, we're also looking to attract the people that are going to vibe with us, and we're okay if someone looks at us and goes, "What the heck? Really? They're on a cruise? Why are they all decked out?" Like, well, because that's I don't know. That's why we're here, right? So,
Heidi said on the feed, she said basically, you're just being yourself, and
right.
yes and no, but you also want to. You can clearly define a brand. Like if I had just said, "Well, I'm just going to be myself," Beach Money would have never been born.
Well, so yeah, I'll give you. So if you look behind you, you've got your Willy Wonka
Yeah,
picture,
yeah,
marketing genius, right? So
yeah,
Willy Wonka was being himself, and he was like sort of enhancing it. He was exaggerating it. So yes, it's be yourself and accentuate it. Willy Wonka, a good friend of ours, his name's Frank McKinney. I don't know if you know him. We'll intro you. Awesome human.
his
Um,
name's familiar. I
yeah,
may have
you
met him.
yeah, we'll connect you. You go, oh yeah, I know some. But one of the things he talks about, he modeled Willy Wonka and Peter Pan because he's very philanthropic. So, but he approaches his branding like Willy Wonka. Like that's he is very like unapologetic about that. So that's the thing is finding, and I think he uses the term like enhance your essence.
Right.
So
So,
when
like, people ask me, like, why do I wear sunglasses? Well, this
beach
is
money,
beach money.
yeah,
This is beach money. Yeah. And Willy Wonka, if you listen to the words to his most famous song, if you want to view paradise, simply look around and view it. Anything you want to do it, you can change the world. There's nothing to it. Pure imagination.
yep.
And that really is the key to that one little verse is a really strong, powerful statement for building any business. It's about using your imagination, and that's what Willy Wonka did to build his chocolate factory.
And now more than ever, with people having to essentially reinvent themselves and man, like if anyone's listening right now and is also struggling, like think about like if you haven't done some sort of network marketing, now's the time because we can't be relying on other people and other companies. They could go out and companies are folding and they're letting people go. I mean, I understandably there's some challenges in the world and people people got to do what they got to do. Companies are going to do what they're going to do. We need to be leaders and take control of our lives and take advantage of the opportunities that are around us and model really what you're talking about because you've proven it's possible. And you've also, like, what I love about your share, and thank you for your vulnerability, is that you tried it and it didn't work. And a lot
Yeah.
of people have done that. Like, I'm guilty of it. I was in send out cards, years ago. I used it for the time and I never grew it, but I used it for when I was working with Tony, and it was a powerful tool. And I told you, I still recommend it because it's a powerful tool. Um, and there are there's like, let me back up. The companies that you worked with, some of them are still in business. Some of them, I hallucinate, are not. Um,
Right.
do you believe that you could have been, knowing what you know now, that you could have made any of those companies work?
Absolutely. Here's what this is the difference between someone who's being a leader and somebody who is kind of like a victim to whatever happens. When you join a network marketing company, your success and the company's success is up to you. So, like, one of the paradigms that I did not have in my first 11 companies was that I could be the cause of the success of the company by building a big team and creating revenue by having people use our services. So when I had a sense of that when I joined my 12th company, but I also got really clear about the power of, there were so many little distinctions that really made a big difference in my success in my 12th company. One was long game and continually introducing it to new people, and then looking for the few that were really serious about it and running with them. So that was part of it. But then in my current company, I kind of lost my train of thought, but it became a bigger vision. It wasn't as much about me as it was about a mission, and then also I started to get clear that brand is important in today's world, and
Mm.
everybody can have a brand. At one point I was thinking, well, there's only so many brands to go around. Everybody can have a brand. So,
Yeah.
like, when we were at on the cruise, and when we were out at sea, there were 400 of us in that room, and everybody got a chance to spend 30 seconds on the microphone. And there were a few people, just like 5 or 6 or 8, that got to spend more time up there because they brought a lot of people. But most of the people, like myself, I didn't have anybody with me. I actually had one couple with me, but I got 30 seconds on the microphone. And so the question becomes, what do I want to leave the audience with that will help them to remember me so that we can connect later?
Right.
Right. And that becomes your brand for that cruise. And so if they don't remember anything else about me, I want them to remember that I'm connected to beach money. Right.
Yeah.
And so your brand becomes really important. It's not everything, because if you just focus on that, it's going to be a long, hard road, because it takes time. But you definitely need to go out and reach out to people and set up times to meet on Zoom or in person at a cafe or whatever you do.
So, since the advent of, well, let me ask this: before COVID, before that stuff, were you using technology the way you are now, or were you doing face to face and phone calls? Were you already using Zoom at that time? Because you're basically
Yeah,
international, right? So you're
right.
not.
And we're a virtual product as well. Like, our product lives online, so
Right.
it's less of it arrives in the mailbox, but it lives online. And so we were doing a lot of virtual stuff before, but it really ramped up, of course, during COVID. Um, yeah, so the big difference is, prior to COVID, we were still doing a lot of in-person meetings, in conference rooms, mostly
Yeah.
offices and things like that. And today we don't do so much of that, although it is coming back to some extent. So I've done hundreds of meetings in real estate offices, because
Hmm.
realtors love our product. Anybody who has any business can benefit from it, but
Right.
real estate offices, they've got a group of 8 or 10 or 20 agents, and so they'll invite me in to give a presentation and show them how they can be better business people and more successful realtors by using our service.
So so that was, obviously, it makes sense to, because that, obviously, what send out cards does is great for everybody. Like, that's just point in case. True. There are products that may not be as, sort of globally effective for so many things, because you could use it personally, like just convenience wise. It's a super easy, awesome tool. Like if you had a big family, like if you're one of those families who love sending cards to all your families and send a gift, you could automate that, and like you're golden. So it's a win for everybody, to be sure. When you were doing the telecom, what was your relationship with finding a way to present it in a way that was like a time you could kind of talk about it any time? Excuse me.
What I was doing, the what?
The telecom, like prior to send out cards, the one that you did really well, that had you had a different strategy there. You had a different product. You had a different everything. What was different
So back
about your
then,
experience?
the product was a commodity because everybody already had long distance. So the way to get customers, in that company to qualify, you needed 20 customers, but it didn't cost the customer anything. They didn't have to pay anything to be your
Right.
customer.
Oh, just switch over to use your service versus.
It was a commodity. And so you would say to people that if everything were exactly the same, if you got the same bill in the mail, you didn't have to, you don't have to do anything different with your phone number, would you be my customer to help me? So that's how we got customers back then. So we'd each get 20 customers, and then the rest was all about making money, which is a different message than I've got today. But a lot of network marketing companies that have kind of boring products that people aren't interested in talking about, it's all focused on how you're going to make money, and you attract people that want to make money. And there are laws around the way you do that too, that the regulators are like really, really, they don't mess around if you're doing things like doing income projections and telling people how much money they're going to make and all that. And there's companies that don't know. There's individual distributors that don't know that, and they end up getting their companies in trouble. There's certain rules that you've got to follow if you're focusing on how to make money in network marketing. But today, with the product that we've got, a lot of it's focused around, our product is focused around business people that are trying to grow a business. And I can show them something that's going to help them grow their business, build stronger relationships, attract better customers, all those kinds of things. And it's just going to make their life better in general. When we talked about this yesterday, Doug, when you're sending positives out every day, like you're sending positive out into the world every day, positive tends to come back.
Yep.
And so I teach people to teach people to send out 1 to 3 cards a day. It'll take you 5 minutes a day. Send them in the mail through your app. And that energy that you're sending out every day will come back to you tenfold.
What I love about and the whole mindset behind it is truly like relationship. Business is relationship. It's not money.
Yeah.
It may be a relationship with money. You may have a relationship with money, and you may exploit other people's relationship with money. That's not necessarily sustainable, and it's not going to inspire, I believe, someone to go out there and connect with people authentically, genuinely, and in a way that is look, money's important, right? It's right up there with air and stuff, but it's
meaningful,
right? Yeah, it's
the
like
way
and that's the power. And I think my experience has been the most successful people in anything are. Well, let me back this up. The most fulfilled, successful people are relationship based. I know a lot of successful people who have tons of money but are miserable because they don't have the.
I think relationship and also mission driven,
Right?
Like cause driven, right? Relationships, absolutely. Those are the people that are the most fulfilled, like you said. And then I also think people that are doing it for a reason bigger than themselves.
Oh yeah, here I'll show you. I'm going to go solo for a minute, and I'll show you my my background. Prosperity through purpose.
Yeah, purpose.
That's what it is. It's about being, purpose. Come on over. All right, here you go. Oh, we switched you. I'm going to go over here. It's that mission, that purpose. That's where true fulfillment happens. And my experience has been those fulfilled people are the ones who are like, they wouldn't be fulfilled without that mission, without a purpose, without that, if we go into, Tony's model, the 6 human needs, they're growing and contributing. Like that is a
Right.
huge part of their thing. And a great example, Frank McKinney, he makes that comment. He's Willy Wonka meets Peter Pan because he markets himself like Willy Wonka, and he builds these mansions for people who this is like their fourth or fifth mansion, and he uses that to then build villages, self-sustaining villages in Haiti.
How
And
cool is that?
that's the Peter Pan, and that's where he's so fulfilled. Where yeah, he does great financially, but really, the reason behind it is that philanthropic. He's a philanthrocapitalist, and he's also very spiritually grounded. We don't have to get down that road about other people. We could talk about our own. We could go down that. What is your relationship like when you're doing all this and connecting with people? I sense that you have a sense of and a connection to something even bigger than yourself.
Absolutely. And God is the energy that connects us all as one.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, so yeah, and it's all acting on promptings is messages from God. Like following your heart are messages from God. They're those God winks that happen every day.
Yeah.
And so it's not an important thing. It's everything.
So looking back, can you think of some times when you got that wink, that tap, and
I get those messages. It's crazy, Doug.
Well, you get them now, but looking back, do you remember going, "Oh, I got one, and I didn't act on it," or were you just not tuned in?
Yeah. I mean, it just takes me a little longer. I got to get kicked on the side of the head a few times before I really get it. It takes me a little longer because I look back and there were probably many times during my on my journey where I'd gotten those messages and then just ignored them. I wasn't really listening.
And how do they come to you now?
Oh, it's like a daily thing. It's crazy. Like I told you one of the stories about going to Chicago. I mean,
yep.
I'm connected to this whole new group of people in Chicago as a result of one thing that happened. It's kind of a longer story. I don't know if I want to get into it right now, but essentially what happened is I've got a piece of art here in my condo in Las Vegas, and I was in Chicago visiting my sister and some friends who were circus performers, and we had dinner and went to see some jazz. And then late at night, they invited me to a birthday party, and I had this prompting to go, although I was tired. It was late. I had to get up very early the next morning for a flight, and I was going back and forth sitting there. It was like I really should be there. I want to go. I want to meet these people, but I'm tired. I have to catch a flight in the morning. And I said yes to go because that was my prompting to go. And I go to this party, and it's a birthday party. It's at the top of a high rise in downtown Chicago. There's jazz playing. It's later in the evening, beautiful views of the city. And they've got a private room, and there's a woman that's having a birthday. And she's with her husband, and they're young, and it's all circus performers. These are all circus performers that have a show in Chicago. When the show is over, they went to this high rise to celebrate her birthday, and there's a slideshow playing behind them in the front of the room. There's a slideshow, and all of a sudden, an image comes up behind her of the piece of art that I have in my condo in Las Vegas. And it's right there.
There it is.
There it is right there. That's a cirque performer. And it turns out that her husband, who's up in front in this high rise, was the cirque performer that piece was made after. And it was done by Richard McDonald. And I don't know if I told you this part of the story. Maybe I did, Doug, yesterday. Richard McDonald was inspired by Tony Robbins. Did I tell you that part of the story?
No, you didn't mention that.
Richard McDonald was a no-name bronze artist. And he was watching late night TV, and he bought Tony's program. And he decided after listening to Tony's program that he wanted to become the #1 bronze artist in the world. And he started doing cirque performers. And almost overnight, his pieces started going for $500,000, $1 million. His bronzes started going for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And he became the #1 bronze artist in the world. And this is a Richard McDonald piece. Now, this is not a $500,000 piece because it's smaller, but this is a Richard McDonald piece. And he's done a lot of the cirque performers, but this guy is one of the top 3 cirque performers in history. And not only did I meet him, but I'm sending him a box of my Beach Money cigars. So he's going to know my brand.
Yeah.
We're connected on social media. And I met these fabulous, like exciting, really charismatic people. I probably made 10 new friends that night, that some of them made into long-term friends. And who knows? I mean, but those kinds of experience, that was a God wink. You know, it was kind of like, you need to be there. I don't know why, but you need to be there. And sure enough, it was the right decision.
Well, and we could share kind of a connection as well. So our friend Christian, that's how I got into send our cards back, when I was working with Tony, he and I worked together. But then when we connected after the cruise, you were like, you go to Vegas much? And as we're chatting, you're like, hey, you know anyone in, music, there's this show. And I couldn't remember the show, but it's one of my dearest friends from back then. We were in a band together. That you were just with Beans, Mike Benigno, and Beans has been on this podcast. Beans, like, he's a great friend, and
I love Beans.
Yeah, so
I met him through a burlesque star who's the most famous showgirl in Vegas, who's spectacular. She was in the show Absinthe for 8 years, and Beans was her roommate in New York and here in Vegas, and I met Beans through Melody Sweets, and then we find out we have this connection as well. And I've taken Beans up.
That's that crazy small world. Also, I think that shows. Like I look back at the people I'm connected with, like Tony being one of them. Right, I got into Tony, like he changed my life when I was like 18 years old, and then I met him very briefly. Like in a hotel, he was doing an event and he was in the elevator, and I'm like, oh my gosh, and I just said hi, but no conversation. Right. Come full circle to come around, end up basically, applying what he used to be really successful in the music industry. Music industry crashes, reinvent, go on the road, end up basically going on the road with him and spending 4 years training with him. And then the people that I've met throughout that are guys like this guy, Omar Periu. I don't know. Do you know Omar? I'll connect you with him. Speaker. I had his one of his programs when I started really going on a personal development kick. Now we're buds. Who's another one? Marshall Silver. Marshall's in Vegas.
Marshall. I love Marshall.
Yeah. So Marshall was one of, again, those first, passion, profit, and power. Right. That, and then I saw him, like he was like the third like live, like event that I had seen, and then now we're buds. So it's like this cool way that things, that's the attraction factor.
Following the direction that you're being told to follow. It's like we all get these messages from the universe, from God all the time. And it's like following those little promptings that you have in the direction that you're told to move. Marshall was the same thing, like how I met him. And then I used to listen to his audio tapes, Passion, Power, and Profit. I used to listen to those climbing up and down the mountain on a yellow Sony Walkman years and years and years before I met him.
Oh, was that the waterproof one? The yellow one?
That one was not waterproof. No.
Okay.
Before the waterproof one.
Old school.
But I want to share one more thing real quick regarding my book Beach Money, because I was with a woman. We are still very, very close friends today. When I was coming out with Beach Money, which was, I don't know, probably close to 20 years ago now, I decided I wanted to give all the profits. I wanted to take the profits from Beach Money, and I wanted to use it to help entrepreneurs start up businesses in developing countries, like third world countries. That was my objective. And then she came to me about a month later and said, there's this organization called Kiva that's already doing this, kiva.org. And Kiva is a miraculous organization. It's a phenomenal organization. And Kiva has done billions of dollars in loans to entrepreneurs in developing countries, microloans. And so through the sale of my book, Beach Money, we've helped over 10,000 businesses start all over the world in developing countries. Like they need $500 to start a farm stand, or they need $100 or $100 to buy a cow, so they can be productive in their community. And some of these communities, there's no entrepreneurship, and they bring entrepreneurship there, but they need loans. And so through the sale of my book, we've financed $700,000 in loans and over 10,000 businesses.
Awesome. Well, we're going to talk offline about that because I have something in the works that is not fully baked yet. So there's nothing to talk about just yet. However, one of the projects that we're doing is documenting things like that
Ah,
to
cool,
give it
cool.
a
I love it.
space for it, right? And to
Yeah.
celebrate it and expose it and bring more attention to things like that. So we'll talk more about it when I have more info. But
That's my Peter Pan moment.
yeah, it's brilliant. It's huge.
Yeah,
And that's why, so that's what I'm thinking. We could document this. Like these are the
sure.
kinds of things. So this is how those little winks happen. Like, oh, we're working on this in the background. We're looking for things like that. And to take it to another level, like imagine going in and doing a little bit of mentoring
Yeah,
and just like sharing what you're sharing right now, but sitting down with someone and just giving them a few tips like, hey, wow, okay, you're starting this farm stand, have you thought about, what's your brand? Do you have a name for it? Are you just going to be some person on the corner, or do you, how are you going to attract, how are you going to stand out from the other farm stands? And I don't know if there are other farm stands where these people
well,
are
yeah, that whole idea. I don't know. I haven't dug that deep, but I think it's just these are villages where they don't wear shoes sometimes, and they're wanting to just be productive in their community and be able to provide income for their family, and so they come up with ideas that are going to solve problems in their village, and they
right.
need a couple $100, and then they pay it back, and then we reloan it back out.
Of
So a lot of
course.
the money is recycled over and over again.
And I'm sure some of those people like have dramatic and radical shifts in their life
Absolutely.
experience because of it. And then
Yeah.
they can mentor other people and show and help pull the community up and say, wow, look, we could all do this together, like and be that light of inspiration. Right?
You
Why did
bet.
you write that book? To inspire others to go, hey,
Right.
look,
I
look,
can
if
do it.
I can do it, you can do it.
Right.
Right? Presupposition of NLP. If one person can do it, any person can do it. Now,
It's great.
will they do it is a different conversation, and that's where the mentorship. So, like, maybe you could also to help people with, because I believe it's timely. I believe now people do really need to look at what are some alternative revenue streams. What are some ways that they could start getting into? This is a low entry, right? The barrier is really low to get into, any network marketing. And this isn't necessarily a send out cards Jordan Adler commercial, but you can make it one. Um,
Well,
it, is like, what does that look like? Like what should someone look for if they're getting into a business like that?
yeah.
And then what is the ultimate goal? Like what makes you a powerful mentor and coach to someone who is wanting to get into something like this?
Yeah, well, for one, I believe in this model, and I'll tell you why. The average person does not have the training. The average person, they worked a job all their life, or they've had a couple of failed businesses, or maybe they've got a small business that they haven't been able to scale, whatever. But the average person, the
Mhm.
person that's just a working class person, maybe they're making under 100 grand a year, and they are working hard, and it feels like they're on a treadmill. Those people, to start a traditional business and to have success, it costs a lot of money.
Yep.
And network marketing costs very little to start and very little to scale. The scaling happens through word of mouth, through the internet, through conversation. So the second thing is most opportunities don't produce any kind of residual or royalty income. If you're a famous actor or an entertainer and you get stuff published and people are listening to it or watching it, you might get some royalties. Like if you were even the Brady Bunch in Gilligan's Island, the royalties were very, 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 very tiny. But if you become a famous actor, you could get royalties off your movies, right? The average person doesn't have access to that.
Right.
And what network marketing does is if you join a company that has a consumable product, a product that's used month after month after month, not something that you just sell once. Because there are network marketing companies where you only sell a product one time and there's no consumable, and those companies don't last. They're around for 2, 3, 4 years, but then your income goes away. So you want a company that has a track record, that's been around for a while, because your residual check is dependent on that company sticking around. So there's legacy companies that have been around for many, many years, and there's startups, The likelihood that a startup is going to be around a year to 5 years from now is very slim. So if you build a $5,000 a month check with a company that is gone in 3 years, your check's gone.
Right.
So I would look for something that's consumable. I would look for something that has at least a 5-year track record, at the very least a 5-year track record, because they've already been through the fire at some level, as far as leadership and as far as, scaling their internal infrastructure. I love network marketing because the company does the hard stuff. They take care of the legal and the fulfillment and the product development and the production and the insurance and the real estate. They take care of all that stuff. The only thing we have to do is share it with others. And we replace what would be traditional marketing, like stuff that companies pay for to get customers. Most network marketing companies don't pay for customers because their affiliates or the distributors share it with others. So you do the work. Like if you can put in 5 hours a week and you can find one other person that can put in 5 hours a week, you now get to benefit from 10 hours worth of work a week, but you're only putting in 5. If you find a couple more people, or if a couple more people join your team that can put in 5 hours a week, you're now benefiting from 20 hours worth of work a week, but you're only putting in 5. And so the leverage of people. Now, another way you can create leverage is leverage of money. But if you don't have a lot of money to invest, or if you do have money to invest and you make the wrong investments, there's not much for you there.
Yep.
But in network marketing, it's about finding people that are inspired by the same vision that you are, helping them get started, and then you get a cut of everything they do for a long, 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 long time.
Yeah, love it. And I think, so conceptually, I think most people get that. And they're like, yeah, well, of course.
Right.
Where the rubber hits the road is then that fear of, and you experienced it. I talked to 3 people and they didn't get it. They weren't into it and so forth. What did you learn as far as either whatever hack you did for yourself to change your mindset around that, or did you change a strategy? Were you noticing that maybe it was your strategy or the way you were asking, or maybe was it something you didn't truly believe in, or where was that gap that you were able to close to be then, the legendary Jordan Adler?
Definitely there was a lot of all of that. There was some shifting my strategy. There was some shifting my mindset. But also the truth is, over the years, there's a lot of, sometimes it happens weekly, where you start to question yourself. You start to doubt yourself. And doubt is a normal human quality. I mean, we all doubt. You'll doubt when you're making nothing. You'll doubt when you're making $100 a month. You'll doubt when you're making $2,000 a month. And you go through waves of that. And so as far as the personal resource that you need to be able to succeed in that environment, because we all go through that. Every business, people that run seminar companies, people that have traditional businesses, you go through these waves of emotion where you start to question yourself. Imposter syndrome. So, but what you got to do as an entrepreneur is you've got to constantly be restarting and resetting and reinventing yourself constantly. So like the days that you're feeling really down, maybe you need to fire yourself for the day and then rehire yourself the next morning, But it's almost like a realization that this is just the way it's going to be until I get to my dream. So let me give you a real life example. I'm a helicopter pilot, and the dream of flying a helicopter is a whole lot easier than the work to get there. In fact, the work to get there was the most difficult thing that I've ever done. And there were hundreds of times on the journey that I would have been fully 100% justified in quitting. Like some of the skills required that I had to master were skills that for many weeks, I was 100% convinced that I could never do them. Like as I'm doing them, like just hovering the helicopter. Forget about communicating with the tower and, working on dealing with airspace and other pilots while you're in the air and flight planning and all the other stuff you need to learn. Weather, just hovering the helicopter took me hours and hours and hours and hours of practice where the helicopter wasn't going to be out of control. And in fact, there was one point where my instructor said to me, Jordan, if you can keep it within a football field, I'll buy you a pizza. And for probably my first 5 lessons, I said to him, my first 5 lessons on hovering, I said to him, I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to get this. And then one day it just wired in because I kept
Mm.
practicing. And I doubted myself. There were times where I was so afraid to do the maneuvers that I was going to be required to do to have that dream to be able to fly. That was the dream. I had to keep the dream bigger than the obstacles. I had to always make my dream bigger, use my NLP to make my dream bigger,
Hmm.
bring it closer, make it more vibrant, make it more colorful, make it more meaningful. And I had to do that because there were days that I was terrified of going into the school to do what I was going to be doing that day.
And it's not like something you
And
could practice at home much.
no, you can practice in your head, but it doesn't work in real life.
Right.
It's something that's got to wire in. You just have
Yeah.
to do it. And so at one point he said to me, I can't tell you how to do it. You just have to do it till you get it. And your instructor saves you over and over and over again, saves you from death over and over and over again. They're on the controls with you on the controls. It's kind of like when your dad or your mom held the back of your bicycle until you were able to get balance. Well, there's
Yeah.
no falling in the helicopter.
Right.
You might get scraped up a little bit if you fall on the bicycle, but there's no falling in the helicopter.
Yep.
So if you start screwing up, he saves you or she saves you over and over and over again. Scary stuff, you know? But my strategy was to make my dream bigger than my obstacles and keep going back, keep resetting, keep reinventing myself daily, starting fresh. Okay, today, and even still, like I've got my 2-year flight review coming up. I've been flying now for 6 years, and I'm nervous about it. And I've been studying every day, and it's hard stuff. And there's days that I go, I don't know if I'm going to be able to remember all this stuff. But then you go in and you do it, and sometimes it works out, and sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes you go back and study some more. You know,
Right. And when it exactly when it doesn't, all that means is
I
time
got more
to
work
yeah,
to do.
right. But it doesn't mean like because what sometimes we've seen people do is like, oh, that's it. I'm gonna take my ball and go home. Not destined for this. And when building a business or anything like that, like as an example, like right now, the economy. But we don't like what's going on in the world. Like there's so many. Like we could find so many problems if we wanted to, and we could
Oh
also
yeah,
find so many things to be grateful for. And the training, what you just shared, is so powerful, and I'm not sure people may have grasped it when you talked about this. I don't know if when someone brings up NLP, some people like glaze over or they don't know, but that is a genuine, authentic, real, badass
yeah,
strategy of what your relationship is with your vision, with what it is. Are you seeing it far away and out of focus and all that? Or are you bringing it closer, making it bigger, creating that dynamism, feeling that love, that gratitude, that excitement? Because our brain doesn't know the difference. So you represented, reinvented, or represented your mission to yourself, your purpose of why this is so important, whatever that is. And my hallucination is the mission of learning how to fly, that dream is got some other depth to it.
oh, absolutely. It's more than just I want to fly. It has to do with, truthfully, it has to do with me being able to plant the seed of a dream in other people. When they come to Vegas, I can take them up and I can show them what Vegas looks like from the sky and give them that experience. Most people have never flown in a helicopter, and so I want to be able to give my friends that experience and help share that dream with them. I'm a dream broker. That's how I see myself. I'm a dream broker. Can I share? Do we have time for one more
Yeah,
quick?
absolutely.
Yeah,
This is
another little NLP technique that I use when I'm having to deal with fears. And again, it has to do with the dreams and the fears and making your dreams bigger than your fears. But there was another technique I used. I was a hang glider pilot for 8 years, and I
wow.
would run off mountains, and that's actually in my first book. I talk about that. I'm not going to go into a lot of it, but the first time so you learn on small berms and on flat ground, and you're carting the glider up a little berm, and then you're having little 3-second flights where you're flying off the mountain and you're in the air for 3 seconds, and you practice your takeoffs and landings, and then you practice your small turns. It's grueling. You get skinned up a lot because the wind blows you over, and you got to learn how to handle the glider in the wind, and you've got a heavy harness on and all this, and it's hot, and it's super hot in the summer with the helmet and all that. Well, then you go from the berm to a 450-foot little hill, and then eventually you go to the top of the mountain. And you don't work your way up to the mountain. You do the small stuff, the fundamentals down low, and then one day you go to the top of the mountain and you're going to fly 5 miles to the landing zone. And so you know how to launch, you know how to fly, you know how to set up your landing, you know how to land. So you drive the landing zone before you go up to the top of the mountain so you can see the lay of the land, where you're going to land, and plan your flight, right? What direction the wind is going. Well, the first time, and not just the first time, probably the first 20 times I ran off the mountain, it's a little ramp that drops off to a cliff, and you're over the treetops. You're flying over the treetops. The first time I did it, what I had to do, because it wasn't a logical thing, normal thing to run off of a mountain, right? It's just not. You've got this wing above you, and as soon as you leave the mountain, the harness, you feel the weight of your body in the harness, and the wing is holding you up. It's like you're hanging from the ceiling, and the ceiling is a wing. And you literally control the glider by shifting your weight forward, back, right, left, and there's certain rules you got to follow, gravitational rules and aerodynamic rules and all that. I would have to disconnect my brain from my body for the 3 seconds it would take to run off the mountain. I could not run off the mountain as long as my brain was attached to my body. This is an NLP technique.
Yeah.
I decided that for my first probably 20 flights, I just made a decision that for 3 seconds, I was going to disconnect my brain from my body, and I was just going to run. And that's what I would do, and that's how I got off the mountain. Once I got off the mountain, it was heaven. Like, it was the greatest experience of my life, was soaring like a bird. Greatest experience of my life. If I had died doing that, it would have been worth it. That's how good it is.
Wow. Do you still do that?
So, no, I did it when I took up helicopters, I gave up hang gliding, essentially.
Because they're more fun?
Well, hang gliders, you have to fly all the time or it's not safe. It's not forgiving. So you got to do it all. It's just, you've got so much bandwidth. I'm traveling for my business and then flying helicopters and other stuff. And it was just too much. So yeah, I don't fly them anymore.
Okay. But man, and that creating that dissociation. I mean, I do fire eating in our breakthroughs, right? Like Marshall. Yep. And that's counterintuitive. You usually don't bring like a foot-long flame to your face. So still, I will get a little bit of trepidation. I'm like, oh, what about my mustache or what have you? And that's why we do it, though. That's why we do these breakthroughs. That's why Tony does the firewalk, why I do the firewalk or glass walks or board breaks, so that we could put in a controlled environment that experience, so we can figure out, we can navigate our way through a real fear. Like, that's a real fear.
One way to do it would be to put a marshmallow at the end of the stick and then get that marshmallow on fire.
Little incentive. There you go. Well, yeah. But that's the thing. So when you're working with your team, like, so now let's go into like a leadership mentoring conversation. How do you help people? Obviously, telling these stories is extraordinarily powerful and so important. Are there any things that you're able to do to, well, I guess when you bring one of your friends up to fly, if they're having trouble asking people to, kind of learn more about what you have going on, and you say, hey, fly this for a little bit. Now something really to be scared about.
I think there's a few things. One is to get an idea of what they're looking for, what they want to get out of it, so you can help them to expand their dream. Asking them questions and having them tell you why they got involved in the business in the first place, or why they're getting involved in the business. That's a start. Second thing is, when you are doing it, to bring your team with you. So try not to do things by yourself all the time. Bring people with you so they can observe and be part of the energy of whatever growth is going on, even if it's tiny. Even if it's tiny growth, little wins. Recognizing people is another important part of leadership. So when somebody does something, even if it's a tiny win, to make sure that they feel seen, and then helping them to through a constant philosophy, helping them to really get the importance of their own personal development and then providing what you learn on there's a list, right? Providing what you learn on an ongoing basis. So if you're in the flow of personal development where you're reading and listening to audios and going to events, taking what you learn and teaching it to people. The more you teach, the better you're going to get.
Yeah, 1000%.
So it's doing, it's teaching, it's being in your personal development, it's recognizing people, it is bringing people with you, it's helping people expand their dream.
Love
and
it.
It's probably right.
And when it comes to, you shared, you well aware of Tony Robbins, have applied some of that. Who are you listening to, following, going to, sharing with now? Like, is there anybody that has been particularly inspirational for you?
I just recently was at an event where Sean Whalen and Ed Milet spoke. I was one of the speakers as well. I really liked Ed Milet. I'm reading his book right now. I've been a fan of Simon Sinek. I like Richard Branson's stuff. I read Richard Branson's books because he's kind of like a Willy Wonka. Richard Branson is, and I've got to spend time with him. Right now I don't like. I'm involved with. You know who Jay Facette? Oh, yeah. Jay was at the marketing cruise. Yeah, I've been doing some of Jay's events, and I really like his stuff. I've been really focused on joint venture opportunities right now, where I'm looking for people that have, large platforms that have a community of people that could really benefit from our service, and then us working together. So they become an affiliate with us, and we work together. I do most of the heavy lifting to introduce their community to our service, which is going to serve their community and also provide another income stream for them.
Love it.
But Jay, I'm learning from Jay Facette. I'm learning from Charles Bird, and he's one of the top joint venture experts in the world.
Ooh, I got another person. Do you know Bob Berg?
Bob's a great friend of mine.
Okay, I was going to say, I'm surprised. I would have been surprised if you didn't know him, because that's right in line with his messaging.
We've done events together. I brought him in for events, and I've spoken at his events.
Yep, love Bob. Yeah, he's right down here, right by me.
Yeah, good guy. Tell him I said hello if you see him.
I shall.
Well, we're gonna see each other down there here in a few days.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if there was and we could start to wrap it up a little bit. If there was any messages, first, if you could give your 20-year-old self advice, knowing what you know now, and knowing that maybe it was something that someone had told you and you didn't listen, was there anything that maybe you look back and you go, so-and-so said, gave me this message, and I didn't listen, for whatever reason, I wasn't ready, or whatever model of the world, that now you go, oh, I understand what they meant?
So for years, Doug, I would tell people when they asked me that question, I'd say, I wouldn't be here if I had done anything differently. People ask me, like, what would I do differently? And then it hit me a few years ago, that there's one thing in particular that is really big. When people become successful at whatever they do, whether they're an entertainer, a professional athlete, a network marketer, any business owner, they're good at the things that they're good at. But when you start making money, you start thinking you're smart. And you're not necessarily smart. You're just good at what you do. And what happens is when you start making money, people know that because you're driving a nicer car, living in a nicer house, taking trips. And so everybody who has an idea that needs money comes to you. And they want to borrow money. They want to borrow money to start a business, or they want to open a nightclub, or they have a real estate partnership, or they're starting a music company or whatever. Everybody wants your money to start businesses. And so when you think you're smart, you're like, I'm going to become an investor. So you start throwing your money away and in all these different investments. So when I made my first $8 million, I paid my taxes and lived on $4 million. And then the other $4 million was discretionary income that I could invest. And so over the course of the next 8 years or so, I invested $4 million in about 40 different businesses and lost pretty much every penny of it. Wow. In about 40 different businesses, because I wasn't an investor. I was good at building a network marketing business. And I thought I was smart, and everybody comes to you with ideas, and they're great ideas. When they being presented, they look good. And it still happens today. I still get almost every day, somebody comes to me wanting money for something, and that's what's going to happen. Now, here's the advice. This is what I learned. The one thing that I would have done differently. I would have taken 10% of my money and I would have put it away into I'd pay myself first, put it into an interest bearing account that's conservative, and don't touch it, don't look at it for the rest of my life. Every dollar you make, put 10% away. If you make $1,000, put $100. If you make $10,000, put $1,000. If you make $100,000, put $10,000. Now, since then, 18 years ago, I started doing that, and I've got millions of dollars over here as a result of it. But if I had taken that 4 million and I had just done that 10%, that 4 million would have been worth over 20 million. But instead it was worth almost zero, because I took the money and I just invested in every idea that came along that I thought was a good idea. And this is why most professional athletes go broke.
Yep.
That have made millions. This is why entertainers go broke that have made millions. Because at some point we all become a has-been. Not all. There's some people that.
And so you bring up an interesting point as well of like, you're staying grounded, humble, and not believing the hype.
Right. It's hard to do because good ideas come your way, and it's like, I want to invest in this, and you got to have a certain percentage of your money. You may take a 10% and do this fun stuff, do the discretionary, crazy, hyper growth kind of stuff just for fun, but you don't want that to be your future. You want to at least take 10%, put it away into something conservative, like overfund cash value life insurance. Just overfund it. Just, and don't look at it, don't touch it for years, and you'll have millions.
Yeah. And then of course there's all sorts of cool strategies you could do with that. When you have that, then it opens you up to a whole bunch of new cool things, which is a whole nother conversation that probably neither of us are experts on. So the other thing is rely on the experts, right? So like your expertise is in the network marketing space and building relationships. So go to you for that. You don't necessarily go to you for what should I do? Like which life insurance should I get? You can say, well, here's the one I use, and here's someone who actually knows maybe things have changed. There's new technologies. There's all sorts of cool stuff going on. And that's the thing is like stay in your lane is a cool message.
Or be willing to learn. I asked a billionaire one time, how do you know whether the people you're hiring are the right people that aren't going to lose your money? And he said, and this wasn't Richard Branson, it was Kenny Trout, another guy. And he said, you got to learn, if you want to be an investor, you got to learn to invest. You need to learn how to invest.
Right.
You can hire people, you can vet those people, but you also want to be able to oversee what they're doing, because otherwise they'll lose your money.
100%. Yeah, actually, that's how I got my success in the music industry as an artist. I started out and, was not getting the results that I wanted. And I was like, I got to just learn how to do this. So I can either communicate what's going on in my head and heart and all of that, so I know what I'm talking about, or be able to do it myself.
Right. Yeah.
And then what I found was I was able to do both. I was able to work with great producers and engineers as the artist. Excuse me. And then I made my own record. You heard the one with Beans. I played that. I mean, I was going back many years, but I could also, because of that, I could work with other bands and go, I know exactly what you're going through because I've been there, and, let's try this, let's try that, and allow the, to make it happen. But it was only because I had been through that and educated myself so that I'd be able to at least communicate it, but then I enjoyed doing it. So, I'm sure you've gotten to the point as well where you enjoy investing your money.
I do. There's certain things that I invest in as kind of crazy fun projects, like my cigars, it expands the
which
brand.
Are phenomenal, by the way. That I'm not a cigar snob by any means. I'm actually one of those guys who I don't smoke a lot, but when I do, it's always like, oh, that was really good. And like, yeah, of course that one was, right? It's like, oh, okay. There's just something that I get, like, I'm sure many cigar people, like, I call it a regret stick sometimes, because the next morning I was like, oh, that one was not that great. But yours, there wasn't that, like, the next morning, like, and smoking it was so smooth and not too heavy. It was just like, it was just ideal. So I'm definitely going to be getting some for my dad because, well, he likes some Boulder. I'm sure you have Boulder ones as well.
Cigars with an S, SIGARS, cigars.com with an S. That's where you can get them. Thank you, Doug.
Yeah.
Plug them.
of, and it's legit. Like I remember the
Good
hotel
start.
I was at. Heidi was at the event. We were at Disney, and I was just sitting on the balcony, and I sent you the picture. I was like, wow, this is amazing. I smoked the whole thing.
I posted that picture in the group. I love it. Hey, my battery just popped
Oh,
up saying I've got like 3%. Just so you know, this is gonna my
okay,
computer's
well,
gonna
cool.
die.
Well, why don't we let you go? I actually have actually a guy that I had to give away our chickens. Funny story. My friends call. So we have four chickens, and then we'll end on
Okay.
this. We have four chickens that we got like a year ago, and we got them
Right.
as chicks, and like we got it for the eggs and all that, and they're laying eggs and all that. But we live in an HOA, and we knew going into it we were testing fate.
Right.
We live next to. Do you remember Christmas Vacation, National Lampoon's
Yeah.
Christmas Vacation? Remember
Yes.
Margot
Yes.
and
Yes.
Todd?
Yeah.
We live next to Margot and Todd.
Great.
So
All right.
we don't have a huge lot on the other side of our house. We have a farm on the other side of the house. It's not our farm, but there's a farm, and behind
Yeah.
us is a preserve. But next to us is a house on one side, and we don't have a rooster, but chickens are a little loud.
Yeah. They're clucking and they hear 'em. Yeah.
Yeah, so apparently they complained to the HOA, and we got the get rid of your chickens letter. And
You're gonna go give away chickens right now.
so I called. So I'm in this group, Ego, which I'll bring some cigars to. Ego, Elite Gentlemen's Organization. It's 8 of us. We've been getting together for almost 10 years now, once a month,
Wow.
all
Cool.
super successful, amazing guys. And one of them owns a huge landscaping and pest control company, and he just bought 5 acres out a little bit. So I texted the group. I'm like, hey guys, I got 4 chickens. I got to get rid of. Anyone want one or know somebody? And two of the guys wanted them. So this
Really,
is the
that's hilarious.
guy who's like, I got this new 5 acres. Let's put him out there, and your daughter can come visit and get your eggs.
That's
So
awesome.
that was him.
Wow.
So thank you so much for
Thank
sharing your
you.
most valuable asset, your time, your wisdom, your energy. This has been an absolute joy. How could someone get in touch with you if they wanted to? I'll put it in the links and stuff as well.
Yeah, best to just follow me on Instagram at Beach Money Jordan. It's probably the best way. Or Jordan Adler. I'm sorry, Beach Money Jordan. Follow me. You can send me a message through Instagram, or you can go to my website, which is beachmoneynation.com.
Love it. Beachmoneynation.com and Beach Money Jordan, right?
At Money Jordan. Yeah.
At Beach Money Jordan. All right. Love it, brother. Well, I love you for who you are and who you aren't. And looking forward to seeing you in a few days. And yeah, looking forward to just rocking the world with you, brother.
Well, thanks, Doug, for the invitation. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I'm looking forward to seeing you next week.
Amen, brother. We'll see you in a bit.
All right. Take care.
Peace.
Bye-bye.